So we covered member questions, Instagram questions. We can jump into good trade, bad trade.
I'll start. Good trade. I've been swinging this WWD. We had a really nice entry on it. We bought it. We missed the entry this day, so we bought it this day through 116, and I was just giving it to these lows right here. Kind of retested that area. We got to purchase some more stock with a cheap stop, and then we sold into strength, and now I'm trailing some on the 8-day here, and I have some stop below 120, and I'm just going to keep that winner. This Yeti I've been building a position to. Now I have a good price, like 31.60 or something, so I can give it to this 30 half here, and then when it waits for that 34, I can add, no problem. I'll have a great average cost. But more importantly, bad trades. Let's talk about the bad trades. Let's talk about this work. I saw people got obsessed with this Slack last week. I was in it too. I only took a feeler loss, but I really wanted to talk about it. So this name, this work, why did we like it? There's a huge short float on it. It's a recent IPO, and it looks like it's based enough to turn around. And the action since its earnings, it gapped down on earnings this day and was bought up vehemently. Vehemently, you like that? And so it looked like it was having a big change of composure in the stock. So we bought a feeler in it these days, and then we caught a vicious gap down this day. So I didn't wait for the 15-minute rule. I didn't want to say, like, I'm not waiting for the 15-minute rule because it could have worked and people are mad at me type thing. But so this trade, we're going completely counter trend. I made the mistake of even having a feeler this day just because I thought it looked so good it was going to gap up through the trigger. So that's why I bought. But this thing was in a complete downtrend. So we're going counter trend to the trade. We don't need to be buying dips in it. We don't need to be giving the 15-minute. If it's telling us it's gapping down and we're wrong, I'm getting the fuck out because I'm counter trend and I could tell that trend is still in motion. So that was a mistake I think we all kind of made in the chat. Just having way too much focus on this. It should have really only been touched above that area. But it just closed so well that one day that I got involved, and then, you know, it starts the domino effect of everyone falling way too in love with it. So then my second mistake of last week was this S-Fix. S-Fix, you see the day it had the shooting star on earnings? So it's this day right here. So they had a really great earnings report. I'm looking at this huge trend line, and this is going to be more focused on psychology, this trade, so I actually got some pretty good news before the market opened, and I didn't realize it. And I became a little bit giddy, whatever. So I'm looking at this trend line, and this is a day one earnings report, and I bought it, and I have a rule that I never risk more than $1,000 if I'm buying something in the first 5 minutes of the day, because it's just a low probability setup. If it works out, nice, but I don't want to take a big loss because that's going to fuck you up mentally. So I get the good news right before the open. So that changes my whole inner clockwork, inner psychology thing. So I buy this S-Fix, and it starts to look good, risking $700. All of a sudden, I tripled up, and I lost like $2,500 in 5 minutes on just like a fucking nothing trade, on an earnings trade that had to work out that second. It wasn't coming out of a major pattern. I had the excuse of this trend line that I was looking at, but that's bullshit. That's not a very good setup. So because I had the good news before the open, I became much more relaxed. I became, everything's going to work out for me. Everything in the world is nice. You can never lose that 50-50 aspect when you're trading. So that was a big mistake I made, and it's like such a frustrating thing to have those 5-minute losses off the open, especially like a big loss. So it's like it's a funny thing about trading where you're always reinforcing very similar principles, pretty much the same things. I made this mistake, the second week I'm trading, and now in my 7th or 8th year I'm making the same mistake because I didn't reinforce the principle. That's just fucking trading, and that's the frustrating human aspect that you're always fighting. But those always getting some good lessons. What do you got for me?
I got two movements. We got this Young C. This is one, if you're zooming out on the daily, going back to like beginning of 2018, we can see that 48 has been resistant. So we saw it in 2018. We saw it get absolutely destroyed, close back to 30, goes back up to 48 again, it retests, and it continues to like fight with this 48. It just really can't break it for the last, almost a year and a half, 2 years. So we always talk about, third, fourth time's a charm, but in a, macro trade like this, to buy 48 and be perfect and expect it just to break 48 and keep going, it's a very hard trade to put on at that level. So sometimes we'll try to find these tighter areas to get in. We don't have to be as perfect. So if you look the last couple of days, we saw this 45 area resistance that's been forming all of October. Just couldn't get above 45, all October, all November. And it finally started to trigger. And a couple of the guys got in it with me as well through 45. and then we just put in a break-even stop the second day, and it's run. You couldn't ask for an easier trade up into this 48 level. And now this is the tricky part where either it's going to continue higher and finally break out, or it'll pull back in like it's done, the past 2 years, and either this could be a break-even trade or it pulls in above our price and continues to break out. So for now, we're kind of just still holding it. If you do want to take some off up here, it definitely could make sense. But for now, I'm just kind of giving it back to my price. And kind of the bad trade, which is this Mondelez MDLZ. Similar trade to this YMC. This one just didn't work. So in Mondelez, we can see this 57 is that macro resistance to all-time highs. Hasn't really set up as much as YMC, but just kind of a top right name. And same story. I don't want to really be buying 56 the first time through those highs and have it be perfect. So it's finding a spot off of support where I can get in. And in this one, we bought up to 53, went like $1, had a break even stop, and it pushed me out. So I lost nothing. So these are two kind of similar trades where I'm looking for that macro breakout down the road, but I'm not trying to be perfect and trying to buy that exact price. I want to get in a little bit cheaper, just like Shake, what you're doing with Yeti, getting just kind of better prices for that breakout. This Mondelez didn't work, didn't really lose much, and this YMC, it's still kind of working. It can still be a break-even trade, or if it does want to go, we have really good stock.
So this YMC, it's funny. So there's a saying: once you know what you're doing trading, obviously this isn't a saying for day one traders. The easy part is buying it. The hard part is selling it. Because it's just similar to that LK where it's like you get the perfect run. When we got that huge move in LK, and everyone was like, should I sell it now? Should I hold on? But it's like, you got to take the gains, but you also want to give it room. And it's like, so this one went straight up. You have such a good trade on your hands, and you have great price for a macro level breakout. But the realistic part of this trade is that it might have to pull back to 46 to go higher, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of have to make a decision with your stock. Am I willing to take that pullback, or do I want to just sell it here? And that's something it's like where we can't tell you what the right move is. That all depends on you and yourself internally. So I just a very interesting part about trading that selling aspect. You got to know what you got to do because it never gets easier.
And even going off that, we have like a lot of guys will ask us like about the alpha alerts, and they're like, you get the when you're buying a stock or I'm buying a stock, the alert comes up. Everyone knows what we're buying, and they're like, well, do you tell us when you sell? And it's like, well, no, because you can put 100 people all buying YMC with the same idea.
At 45.
Yeah, and there's going to be 100. There's going to be someone who sold 46, kind of sold at 47.
Lucky.
Yeah, he's going crazy
Shut
back
the
there.
fuck up.